What is up, guys, and welcome to another lecture of the Next Level Esports Discord, where I will provide you of the most value to get the people side of esports right and get you and your players towards that next level. So today we're talking about how to handle conflicts within the team, and I felt like this is an important topic to go more in depth about, because a lot of conflicts arise within esports teams. Players, coaches oftentimes don't really have the tools to cope with conflicts and how to present themselves in different ways, or how they can work around different conflicts, and if conflicts or in itself are healthy or are they toxic, and if there are differences between conflicts. So we're gonna deep dive into all of that in today's lecture. But as always, we'll start what we're gonna learn today. So the goal for today is how to handle conflicts within a team and how to prevent them from happening. So the topics that we will define in a couple of, sequels as well, and it will be posted in different parts as well on the YouTube channel. So the first one is where conflicts come from. So obviously we know what conflicts are inherently, but to give a more wording towards it, so you have a clear definition what conflict is and how you can see it, so you can more so have more tools available for you to see when a conflict can arise and what kind of topics and in what category you can put them in. Then number two, most common conflicts and how to handle them, the most common place where it also happens, and how you can oftentimes with a couple of things can solve a lot of conflicts as well. And number three, how to prevent conflicts, because prevention is always better than curing anything. So we're gonna talk about that as well. And number four is also a bit of a repeating thing out of last lecture as well, about transferring control, a short segment about that to give a different perspective on how you can also resolve conflicts within a team environment or with a one-on-one coaching, because oftentimes coaches feel like, oh, they want to be in control because I'm the leadership role, but how can you have a good balance with being the guide, being in control as well, and also giving the other players some control as well, to balance that out, and how you can do that. So let's jump into the first thing first. So what are conflicts? So having a conflict is a situation where two or more parties have different approaches, objectives, or values, and in the perception of these parties and are incompatible and therefore clash. So it's maybe a different or a difficult sentence, but it's about the things that are underlined. It's about differences between approaches, how we should approach things. Let's say, we should go left or go right in order to get that objective, or the objective is different. Oh, we should go towards this part of the map in order to take control. No, we should go to that part of the map to take control. Or there's a difference in values, how for example, we should behave with one another. So in order to help you yourself to interact with as well, think about some conflict or maybe one thing that you feel like, oh, this was from this different view of perception. And also, what kind of category was it? Was it a difference in the approach, a difference in the objective, or a difference in values? And I want you to think about that for, let's say, a couple of seconds and feel like, okay, what was this all about? So you're actively learning together with me as well while you're watching this lecture. So it's not only about passive learning, but also involving you into the learning process to get through this, because on a cognitive level, oftentimes we understand things how they should be, but when we are actually engaging with things, we need to structurize our thoughts, and that is where the magic and the learning process happens. So think of this as well, and maybe one or two examples pop up. So maybe of the people that are here, maybe you can type into the chat where what you're thinking about in terms of conflict. Maybe one or two small short sentences, what you thought of, and then think of like, oh, was it an approach difference? Was it an objective difference? Or were the values just like misaligned. So I see someone typing differences in skill level that are not apparent at first, but rise once the competition get tough. All right. So what's kind of one of the three things would that fit under? Is that about approaches, objective, or values? So that is the next question for you. And also saw someone else typing as well. Yes, influences objective. All right, it influences objective because the skills are not aligned. It could be that the players have the same objective, win this tournament or go to playoffs or at least get top 3, depending on the skill level, etc. So it can be that, but even though you have skill differences, you can still have the same goal. So what I would say about this particular example, I will put it more into the approaches, because every player approaches the game in a different way, and therefore there's a different perspective on how to approach the game where you can see the skill level in. So that's something to think about, and maybe also to work. Maybe you want to practice it with another example, because obviously you are right, it influences the objective, but doesn't mean necessarily there has to be a different objective between the players. So I saw someone else typing as well. Typing. Just gonna take a sec. Difference in objective, something that seems good for one lane in particular wasn't good for the whole map. Right, good example. So sometimes when you're facing with players, they see different things. They're using the same senses, their eyes, their ears, their nose, everything else. But on the map, they process information differently, or they miss some information, or they have more information. So you get differences or conflicts within the objective. No, we should go take, because I know this person is in League of Legends. So no, we should go Dragon. No, we should go Baron. No, we should go Elder Drake. No, we should rotate. These are all conflicts and differences in terms of objectives. And we want to align them. And it's good to have some conflicts in terms of it as well, but we'll go into that deeper why some conflicts are very healthy. So let's move further in that regard. So the approach is a couple of examples. So I think we should do X in these situations versus no, I think we should do Y in this situation. So it's about the map state, for example. We should go the Baron, or we should go Dragon. We should go left. We should go right. We should go to Heaven, or we should go to sandbags in CSGO. And you can think of more examples for yourself. Or number 2, if I'm focused on myself, then we have the best chance to win. Versus I am supportive towards my team members, so we have the best chance to win. So it's a different approach how we behave with one another. We should play safe in this situation versus we should play aggressive in this situation. So even the goal is the same, the objective, but the approach is different in how to achieve that goal or objective. Then we go to the objective. So these are differences as well. So my goal is to reach international competitions, and I see this a lot of times happening within teams, that they don't talk about their ambitions and their goals in the beginning of the team. So later on, after a month or two, you feel like a motivation difference, and it's because one player wants to reach international play, wants to go LEC, wants to go to the majors in CSGO or anything else that is a high competitive level on a world stage. But maybe your teammates is just like, okay, I just want to do well in national competitions. So that is a conflict. How do you resolve that? And how do you work with that? Later, more on that in this lecture. So 2, we should rotate now to gain the upper hand versus we should stick to the plan as for now. Also, what is the objective? What are we gonna do all at the same time? The most needed thing to practice right now is communication. This must be our objective, the goal for today's practice or today's goal for the match. If we should play slow, then we win, or we should play fast and aggressive, then we will win. It's a different objective. The most needed thing to practice right now is X playstyle. So these are some differences as well. And the last one is maybe the more invisible one, because we all have values, but a lot of players, also even coaches, don't really know their own values. They know what they stand for, but it's not always explicitly put out there. You know these values of players once you know them, once you've played a couple of weeks or months, if you're not talking about it. But this is also something if you could ask with players, like, what are your values? What do you find important? What is particularly important to you? So what are some of those examples? I believe that being nice most of the time is more important than being critical, versus I believe that being critical most of the time is more important than being nice. So it's the opposite. Number 2, we mostly play what is objectively the best in the given meta. I, for example, like to play objectively when I play a game, like what is the best in the meta with a little bit of creativity. But some players really prefer we should play what is subjectively the best for the players, what feels right, what I believe I am strongest in. So this could be a conflict within a team environment, and you have to talk about that. And later on in this lecture, we will give you some tools in order to work through these conflicts and how to resolve some of it, or maybe even all. Number 3, spending quite some time connecting with the team members outside practice is important, versus we can be somewhat distant towards each other outside practice because we see each other enough in practice. We all know one way or another in practice, especially within team environments, that there is one player that always hangs around after the scrims, after the practices, that just wants to chill out, but also maybe 1 or 2 players that maybe stick around for 5 to 10 minutes and then like, guys, I gotta go. In the beginning, it doesn't seem like that much, but over a long term, if we're talking about a split or a tournament of 2, 3, 4, or even more months, or maybe a year in terms of contracts, it can add up and it can result into frustration and people misaligning because they feel like, oh, you're not invested. Well, you don't know what's going on. So we have to resolve that, and it can be an issue and a conflict as well. So those are some things that we can face in terms of conflicts around values. So what are the priorities to know? So to give you a broad concept of how to overcome conflicts, you want to work on a couple of things. So these are not practically yet, but more a huge concept that overlaps as a sort of umbrella over all of the coaching. So first you want to figure out within your coaching that you want to know, why do we do what we do? What do we find important as an individual and as a team? What is our identity? Who do we want to be? What do we stand for? That is really important to start off at the beginning of the season, to understand, like, how do we behave? Do we feel like responsible? Do we want to fight as a unity? So when you are talking about objective and approaches, you can come back to towards the values and feel like, oh, if someone is playing an individual game, like, okay, our values are, we do this as a unity, right? So you can hold them accountable towards the values that everyone agreed on in the beginning of the season. And if you make this clear and you write this down and you make it visible within your team, or you repeat it every once in a while, or when it's necessary to repeat it, then it starts to sink in, and it creates a sort of a safe environment and a framework where everyone knows where to work into. And then the second one is to go for objectives. So, okay, now we know what we value, we know what we want to be and what our identity is and what we kind of want to present ourselves with. But what should our objectives be? Should we go to the all want to strive for international fame, or do we want to just do good in this particular tournament? Do we want to place ourselves in the playoffs, or do we want to become first, or is the second place in this division with the resources that we have also a very good achievement? So think about this and speak this out in the beginning of the season, also to prevent it and also to filter out a lot of these conflicts before it gets irritating and starts to, let's say, crack within under the skin of players in order to not be able to present themselves, and it will stack up and explode like a volcano. And this is a lot to work with already in the beginning to lower the pressure from the beginning of the season. And this is not only the objective, because the values is more globally. The objectives is also about what is needed for this upcoming practice, or what is needed for upcoming match. So instead of the whole picture, the whole team and the whole tournament and everything that is involved, we're looking for objectives that is smaller. Maybe for this month, what should be the objectives for this month, or this week, or this match, or this moment in itself. And then number 3, go down towards the approach. So when we have our values, we know how we want to behave and what our identity is. Now we want to present ourselves. We know what the objectives we are in this training, in this practice, in this month, in the standings, etc. Then how are we going to achieve it? What should our approach be? How are we going to work with each other? So those are the values. How are we going to approach our goals? So our objectives. And what should we do to get there? And what is allowed, what is workable, what is not, what aligns with us and what not. We all know that there's difference in players, that someone always ins or runs in and is super aggressive and takes every 50-50 play and is successful in that part. But other player doesn't really like that play style, so he's more conservative, more analytical, and sees opportunities and wants to calculate what is best inside the given moment, but it's more slower or more even defensive play style. So this could be a conflict. But if you have the approach and you know what everyone does and what everyone values and what their strengths are, you can also, the differences are not a conflict, but they are complementary. And this is a word that is very important through all of this. If you feel like you are the opposite of each other, oh, you're standing on the opposite side, build a bridge by saying we are complementary towards another. Good, the bad, dark, light, etc. Right? So you always can build a bridge. So what can you use from your perspective, your aggressive play, and also learn and take away to make this team work from my defensive and more analytical and slower paced play? Can we combine it in one way? And can we meet maybe somewhere in the middle, or more on my side or your side, whatever makes sense and what is right for the team? So that resolves already by applying these 3 steps for a lot of conflicts in the beginning of the team. So then we move on to another perception of conflicts. Oftentimes when we are hearing conflicts also in the news, we're talking about wars or political conflicts or whatever, yada yada. But conflicts in its core, they are healthy, and you have to understand that. Conflicts are necessary. You want to have conflict within your team. You want to have the intention, not the expectation, but the intention that the team sees conflict as something healthy, as necessary. So you try to advocate for this intention and mindset between yourself and the players and the whole organization or environment, that it's needed in order to develop and grow further as a player and as a team. So conflict increases the awareness of problems that exist and provides a reason, and that is important, a reason for finding better ways forward. Because if you don't have this conflict about this aggressive player and more defensive player, then you are just like distant towards another. You're not complementary, you're distant towards another. So it provides a reason for finding a better way forward. So build that bridge, they are complementary of each other. And what can we use of the aggressive play style? And what can we use of the more defensive and slower paced play style? What can we learn from one another and how can we make it complementary? Maybe we need to shift to more conservative playstyle or more aggressive playstyle depending on the needs and what makes sense for the team and what the players feel comfortable in. But a lot of conflicts just is communication, talking. And it's okay to disagree. You can agree to disagree, but you don't want to make it toxic. You don't want to force your opinion on everything, because you need to have the intention that conflicts are healthy. That is what the intention is about. Don't force it on people. Just have the intention that if we have a discussion, it will be better. It's good for the development of the team. So in the meanwhile, if you guys have questions in the chat about this or anything that you want to share, just post it down into the lecture workshop text channel, and I will answer your context type of question as soon as I can.